Hello, hello, hello. I'm just going to give it a few moments just to make sure that I'm live. I'm just going to see. I'm live. Oh, let me turn that down. Yes, and we're live. Yay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kalani, and I'm a shamanic priestess, an energy medicine master teacher, and a soul coach. I've got over 16 years experience as a therapist, and I've got a lifetime experience of healing from trauma. So this is a subject very, very close to my heart as a therapist, but also from my own personal point of view. So I'm just going to check to see if anyone's going to come on before I carry on. So if you are watching this later on the replay, pop in the comments #replay, and please do share the Kinesioni group with all of your friends. We have got a whole wealth of expert therapists in here, with a whole wide range of things that can help you in your life journey, in your healing journey. And I'm very, very proud to be part of this. So as I was saying, so I've got a lifetime, it's over 16 years experience as a therapist, and over a whole lifetime experience of learning how to deal with trauma. And that is the very reason why I'm here today. And I want to tell you all about shamanic soul retrieval. But not just about shamanic soul retrieval, it's about my approach to it. I'm a trauma-informed coach, and I think that's really, really important when you're dealing with really delicate issues such as trauma. And the whole reason why I've gone down this route is because I've had therapies and things before that wasn't trauma-informed, and it was like having a scar with a scab on it. And I went along and had the therapy, and then it was like ripping the wound off. And I don't want that to happen to absolutely anyone. So the trauma-informed approach is really, really important. But I will go into more detail about what that is in a moment. So what is a shamanic soul retrieval, you're probably asking. Some of you may know. A shamanic soul retrieval, when anyone goes through any kind of trauma, and that could be illness, accident, abuse, or it could even be it could be a perceived trauma, which I'll go into in a moment. But the important thing is, if you've been through any kind of trauma in your life, it's not comparable at all. And when you go through any kind of trauma, there's something happens to the soul. Okay, so when we're born, or actually before we're born, our essence is like pure light, and nothing is affected by it. It's your higher self, it's your higher essence, it's your beautiful self, not affected by life or nature or nurture. But as we grow and go through life, that was a slip there, but that was quite good. As we grow through life, we grow many layers around our soul, and that's through all of our experiences. And what happens is, if you go through any kind of trauma, then what happens is part of the soul may fragment and split away, and that is to protect you. Now, that is not your soul abandoning you. It's actually protecting you from the full-blown memory of that trauma. So, and then what happens is that soul part, it goes back to Pachamama. It goes back into the lower world. It goes back down to Mother Earth, and because it's going to feel safe there. Pachamama, Mother Earth, that's the womb. That's the womb of the shamanic realm. And your soul parts will feel safe there until they are retrieved back. Now, if you've been through any kind of trauma, then you may have experienced some of the following symptoms. Now, these are symptoms of soul loss. So you might have had emotional numbness or detachment. You might have brain fog. You might dissociate, have dissociation, like blackouts, things like that. So memory loss. Okay. You might have difficulty moving on after any kind of traumatic experience. It may feel like you're stuck and that you can't move forward. You might have persistent feelings of emptiness, of depression, anxiety. You might feel lack of purpose, or not quite feeling like you belong here, that you belong somewhere else. And there's normally like when you've suffered from soul loss, there's a void deep in your soul that's and that void is because that soul part is missing, and that void will do anything to avoid any hurt, and that can cause us all sorts of problems in our life, which I'll talk about in a moment. But with soul loss as well, you might be experiencing repeated cycles of unhealthy relationships. Now, I know that one from experience. And there might be patterns as well. So, and the last one, well, it's not the last one because there's probably many more. It's PTSD. It's one of the major things that I used to suffer from. I used to have really severe PTSD when I was attacked and left for dead in the snow. And for a long time, for many years, I couldn't even look at snow without having a panic attack, or without spiraling down into depression, or having behaviours that made me try to avoid that. And it wasn't until I had a shamanic soul retrieval that I was able to heal from that. Now, I know you're probably thinking you can't heal from PTSD. I'm living proof that you can. After I had my soul retrieval, I didn't know what to expect when I had it done. It was when I first did my training in shamanic healing, and when I first had it done, my teacher, she did the soul retrieval on me, and she did it distantly. And the next day I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw a picture of me and one of my best friends that's passed into spirit, a picture of me and her playing in the snow. Now, there was two factors there that normally would have made me start to cry and or get really panicky because I saw the snow, and upset because I saw my friend Ro. But I looked at this picture and I just felt peace and joy in my heart. And it was the most weirdest thing. It was the most surreal thing, because I was kind of like checking myself. I'm like, why am I not triggered? Why am I not reacting? Why why am I feeling such peace? It didn't make any sense. And then when I spoke to my shamanic teacher, and then she said that when she was doing the soul retrieval, she actually saw my soul leaving my body after, when I was being attacked, but she knew nothing about that. So that was kind of like the cincher for me. Do you know what I mean? I've been looking for that deep kind of healing my whole life, to be honest with you, and this was like the holy grail of healing for me, and it was the missing piece in my own healing puzzle as well. So, but since then, do you know what I mean, after then I qualified as a shamanic healer and practitioner, and if you're a therapist, then you know that your healing work is never done. You're constantly working on yourself, and as you're working on yourself, you're working on clients as well. And the soul retrieval journey for me, it's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible. I've had a lot of trauma throughout my life, and there was one, if I tell you one, well, there was several experiences, but this is how you might have one shamanic soul retrieval, and I don't want you to think that just having one shamanic soul retrieval is going to solve all your problems, because as you heal one layer, you might have to heal another layer, and you might have suffered from several soul losses in your life. You could have been, for me, there's been, well, there's more than 10. But there was one situation that came up, and it was when I was starting to do the inner child healing for myself and for my clients as well. And I used to get really, really panicky when I used to get on the bus, or if I had to travel anywhere. And I kind of like, there was no real reason. There wasn't a real reason. Well, I perceived there was in my mind, because I was having the physical symptoms, and this is what PTSD does. I was having the physical symptoms. My heart was racing. I would feel sick. I would come out in a sweat. I would get disorientated, and kind of like, I'd get really, really panicky that I'd get off the wrong stop, and all this kind of stuff, and it didn't make any sense to me. So I thought, right, I need to explore this. So when I'm doing soul retrievals on myself and on clients as well, there are 4 chambers of the soul. There's the chamber of the wounds, and that contains the imprints of any past traumas that you've been through, any soul injuries, and in the chamber of wounds, this is where you find out exactly what is going on, and then you can turn those wounds into wisdom. There's the chamber of contracts, of soul contracts, so I delve into that. There's a chamber of grace, and that's really about kind of like forgiving those who've done wrong to you, but more importantly, forgiving yourself, and having that compassion and grace for yourself. That is really, really important. And the last one is the chamber of treasures. So in the chamber of treasures, that's where this is my favorite part, because we can look at all those wounds, we can negotiate them soul contracts. We can end those soul contracts. We can have more grace in our life, and then we find the beautiful gifts that we can gain from that trauma. And so when I started delving into my chamber of wounds, the first thing that came up was a memory of when I was about, how old was I? I think I was about five years old, 5 or 6 years old. And I was on the Isle of Wight with my family, and I saw a lady get onto the bus who looked very much like my mum. So I jumped on this bus, like all happy at that, and like like when you're a little child, you just hop to the back of the bus, don't you? Well, I used to do that. Anyway, so I hopped to the back of the bus, and anyway, I kind of got halfway around the island before I realised that the woman who I thought was my mum actually wasn't. It was a complete stranger. So I started crying, and I felt that it was a real abandonment wound. I mean, I remember it to this day, how distraught I was, and the bus driver had run through to the police, and then no one was picking me up, and then I was taken to a police station, and it was literally hours and hours and hours before anyone picked me up. Now, there wasn't, in that, when I was on that bus as a 5-year-old, I was not in any danger whatsoever. That's the reality of this situation. But my perception of that situation as a 5-year-old was that my mum's abandoned me, and she's never going to pick me up, and I don't know what's going to happen. And so I had to do, I did a soul retrieval, and I did some inner child work, and I worked on those soul contracts, and I was working on the gifts from that. But afterwards, I still wasn't. When I was traveling around and that, I still wasn't right, and there was still healing things that were coming up to the surface. And I'm like, I think I need to dive deeper. And then I ended up doing several more soul retrievals, and as I was going through these soul retrievals, it was kind of like they were different situations came up, but it was giving me it was the same kind of pattern that had formed. So when I was 5 years old, that was the bus situation and abandoned, and that was a perceived trauma. When I was 4 years old, I was abused, and then I was scolded as well for that happening. So that was a real trauma. When I was 3 years old, my mum had left me with my sister, and my sister fed me alcohol and almost killed me. So that was another real trauma, and I was abused before that. And so it was kind of like abandonment, betrayal. There was all of these themes that kept on coming up, which was heavy stuff to deal with. But it was like, right, no, I can do this. And then when I got deeper into it, and I realized that, that my soul contracts were giving me the same kind of situations, just in different scenarios. But it was an abandonment issue. I realized that when I did the last soul retrieval on this situation, that I realized that it stemmed back to when my twin died in my mum's womb. So that was that separation and abandonment issue. So I did a lot of deep work on that, doing the soul retrievals. But it's not just about the soul retrieval. It's about, like I said, it's looking at the wounds. It's looking at those soul contracts. So there was a lot of soul contracts going on with me. So it was kind of like, if I please people, if I say yes to everyone, then they're not going to leave me. Do you know what I mean? That I'm not going to have that separation. And so there was a lot of lessons learned from that. But I think one of the most important lessons was in the soul chamber of grace, was forgiving those people, but more importantly, forgiving myself. Because although I had those abandonment and separation issues, it was the fact that throughout my life I had abandoned myself. And it wasn't until I did my shamanic training and to realise what I'd done. So now I live with more compassion, I live with more grace. Forgiveness is a big part of my own healing and what I help other people with as well. So it's really powerful, and it's changed my life. And the clients that I've worked with, it's also changed theirs. Now, I mean, I know from experience, nothing against psychotherapists and that, because I've worked with them, and I do believe that as alternative healers, that we should be working alongside medical professionals, and I'm not saying for anyone not to do that. But when you go to a psychotherapist, then they normally ask you if they do ask you about your trauma, because actually a lot of them don't even ask you whether you've been through any trauma. They'll just label you with bipolar or borderline personality disorder or something else like that, rather than saying, well, what happened to you? Okay. But if they do, then they normally ask you, what was the last thing that happened to you? Okay. And let's deal with that. And things that's okay for dealing in the here and now, but it doesn't get to the core of the problems. So I mean, I had psychotherapy for years and years and years, and yeah, it helped me to plod along, but it didn't solve anything. I still came back with the same trauma responses and the same coping mechanisms. So when with shamanic healing, now shamanic healing has been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and it's the most beautiful thing, because if you think in the original shamanic tribes, if someone suffered with any kind of trauma in that tribe, then that person would be gathered by the tribe. They'd be loved for, they'd be cared for, they'd be supported, and the shaman would do a soul retrieval within normally 3 days of whatever trauma has happened to them. And so the healing process would begin very quickly. Now, if you, I, or anyone in the UK, around the world, excuse me, goes through any trauma, then you definitely probably won't get any help within 3 days. You might get help within a couple of weeks if you're lucky. That's very doubtful. 3 weeks, 3 months might go by, 3 years might go by, 30 years might go by, 60 years. You could go a whole lifetime holding on to that trauma and it affecting every single part of your life. Because trauma affects you mentally, affects you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Every single part of your life. Now, that trauma, that soul, when you suffer that soul loss, it leaves a void. Now, when you look at any kind of void, if you've got a void, that void needs to be filled, and that is why when we after we've experienced any kind of trauma, that we will do anything to fill that void. I mean, it's like filling that hole. I mean, it's that pain that won't go away. And so that's why there are a lot of people, and I've been through it myself, that will use drugs, will use alcohol, cigarettes, food, anything. They will try anything to fill that void and to stop that pain. Okay? But as soon as you have a soul retrieval, I work with my spirit guides, I work with my power animals, and what I'm doing is I'm acting like a soul compass. So it's guiding your soul part back home. Now, I'm not going to give you back your traumatized soul part. I'm not going to, it's not about that. It's about giving you back your pure essence. Then doing the work on the 4 chambers. So working on the wounds, working on the contracts, working on the grace, working on the gifts, the treasures, because you could, I believe, I mean, this is how I work now. I didn't when I first started because I wasn't taught this. I learned this myself. But you can't have a soul retrieval without doing the work as well. Because if you have a soul retrieval and you haven't done the work, then your soul's going to want to splinter off again. It's going to want to fragment again, and it's going to say, your soul's going to say, I'm not coming back until you've done the work. Okay, so we have, and it's not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy, but it can be done. And when it is done, it is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And the thing is with the soul retrieval, the shamanic soul retrieval, and doing the soul work as well, what I wanted to mention was why being trauma informed is really, really important. Now, when I'm working with a client, it's really, really important that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that are of utmost importance for me to help my client. One is they must feel safe. They must feel safe in my company. They must feel safe safe for me to do the actual soul retrieval, and feel safe enough to do the coaching with me as well, so that they can change their life. Okay, trust. They need to be able to trust me. Okay, so, and it's creating that beautiful, trusting, safe environment for them. And it's also about collaboration as well, because it's not about me telling my client what to do, because most of us, we have the answers already. Okay, and it just takes a little tweak, and sort of when you come up with the answers yourself, when you realise, you're like, actually, this is what I need to do to change my life. When I've got my soul part back, and it's kind of treating your soul parts like your inner like you would an inner child. And when you take those soul parts back, it's like, right, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I love you? How can I protect you? What do I need to do to heal, to make things right? How can I walk in beauty? How can I have more faith in myself? How can I love you, my little soul part, my little mini me? How can I love you? How can I love you a bit more? And when we show that love and respect to our soul parts, when we've retrieved them, it makes me quite emotional, actually, because it's life-changing. It's life-changing when you start to realize. When I started to realize, when I was working with my, I wasn't expecting to cry, sorry. When I was working with my inner child, and I'd realised how much I abandoned her. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. But when you do the work and you show that love and you show how much you're going to protect them, it starts to change your life. And it's beautiful. Hello, Jennifer. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm just gonna have a little bit of a drink. Whew, I wasn't expecting to get emotional then. Sorry. But the trauma-informed approach that I work with, it's about gently reintroducing your soul parts back and integrating them into your everyday life. And I mean, I found that sort of now I love the snow. Do you know what I mean? As soon as it's snowing, I'm like, yeah, I want to go out and play. I want to go skiing. Which I never thought I'd say. And also as well, I've done all the inner child work, shamanic healing on myself, and it brings out a real playful side of you, which I'm a lot more fun now, and I'm 51 years old than I ever was 20 years ago. And that's because I've done the inner child work, and having joy and fun and laughter is so important in our lives. And when we've had trauma, especially as children, we lose that innocence, we lose that fun, we lose that joy. And a shamanic soul retrieval can give that back to you. I can 100% guarantee it. If you do the work, it will come back. It will come back, and it will change your life completely. So that's with the shamanic healing. I don't just do it in one session. I originally was taught that I could, but I don't think that builds up enough support and respect for my clients. So I like to do the full shamanic soul retrieval and the soul coaching alongside it. So I do it over 4 sessions. So it's doing the actual soul retrieval itself, It's looking at your soul wounds, turning them into wisdom. It's also looking at your Akashic records, your soul contracts, and if we need to renegotiate your soul contracts, or we need to put a stamp on them and void them and chuck them in the bin, we can do that. Then it's looking at grace. It's looking at forgiveness for other people. And I know that's when you've been through trauma, and I know because when I first did this work, I was like, I'm not forgiving anyone. Do you know what I mean? I'm not doing it. Do you know what I mean? No, can't do it, won't do it. But when you're forgiving someone, if they've done you wrong, then it's not you condoning what they've done. When you forgive someone, you cut those cords and you free yourself, and it's empowering. It's really, really empowering. And working with that grace as well, it's working on that compassion and that self-love for yourself, and loving that soul part that you lost, that's come back. And then the most beautiful part of it is with the soul coaching is looking at the treasures. It's looking at the beautiful gifts that you can gain from that trauma, and from gaining your soul parts back. So you go from having that void to feeling whole again, and you feel whole, you feel supported, and it's just wonderful. It really is. So I'm gonna wrap up in a moment. But if anyone would like some more information on shamanic soul retrievals, or any of the other work that I do, the soul coaching, I can do treatments via Zoom. So please do message me, and then let's have a chat about how I can help you. And I'm just gonna check my notes because I tend to go off on a tangent. Right, so yeah, I think I've covered everything. But I want to thank you so much for joining me, and listening to my healing story, and about what soul retrieval is, and the trauma-informed approach, which is really, really important, I think. So I'm going to love you and leave you for now, sending you much love, light and blessings. And until next time, may you walk in beauty, grace, wisdom and light. Thank you.